So I think we're ready. We're live. And tonight we have Dr. Anna Negron, MD, family physician. She practices family medicine out of Pennsylvania. I'm excited to have her here because tonight we're talking about the lifestyle medicine approach. And I just want to know more information about it. I know many of you have asked. I am vegan, but it's great to hear physicians talk about treating their patients with food versus just medicine, the typical Western medicine. So thank you, Dr. Negron, for coming to the Bar Talks platform tonight.
A pleasure.
I'm so excited to have you here. How are you doing in these times?
Well, keeping to the recommendations of trying to keep safe, mask on, wash your hands. But
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, it has closed some doors and opened others because
Mhm.
this kind of interview would
Yeah.
not have happened.
Right. Right. So yeah, I agree with you. I've been able to connect with amazing people like yourself, and I would have never been able to do so unless I actually came knocking at your door, like, "Can I interview you, please?" So I'm thankful. I'm taking the good with the bad.
Me too.
Good. Okay, so I know I reached out to you because I am a vegan, and two, I looked at some of your work in various places, and I had spoken also with one of your, I don't want to say colleague, but I guess one of your friends in the industry, Dr. Baxter Montgomery, and we talked about the plant-based and the lifestyle medicine approach to treating patients. And I found out in my research that that's one of your beliefs as well. And of course, I would love to know more about that. I would love to know, how did you get into this arena as far as treating patients in this particular lifestyle?
It was a long and tortuous way because when I first changed my lifestyle to avoiding animal products, it had nothing to do with medicine or with what I knew food could do for our health. It had to do with ethical and philosophical reasons, the environment, the violence to animals,
Mhm.
the waste, the pollution. Um, and so I kept it to myself and my family for a while I started to learn a little bit more about food and medicine, which I didn't really learn about this in my medical school. And I have to tell you, most of my colleagues didn't learn it either. So
Wow.
this is why many patients are finding themselves just distraught, asking their physicians to help them with lifestyle, and the physicians are probably eating the same way as they are.
Yeah.
So and getting a lot of the information from the media and from advertisements, unless we really take time to learn about it, from credible sources.
Mhm.
So it was years later that I accumulated so much information about the fact that a plant diet was not just good for my soul, but
Yeah.
was really good for my patients and for the health of my patients. I took a couple of years of sabbatical and learned a lot about food and medicine, making up for lost time. And then I felt really empowered to bring it to patients
Yeah.
because you can burn out thinking that you're adding medications every year to people who will never get will never be off them.
Mhm.
So started cooking with my patients, starting to really lecture, and well, you'll ask me more, but
Wait,
this is how
wait,
it
you
started.
started cooking with your patients. Come on, tell me more about that. How did that, I mean, I don't know if my doctor would say, "Hey, let me cook with you." I don't know how I don't know how I would respond. I'd be like, "What?" So tell me, how did that happen?
Well, it wasn't one-on-one, it was just I brought a few samples of food when I realized that really people couldn't be told eat healthier. They
Mhm.
had to be it had to be something a little bit more specific.
Right.
What is healthier? And we
Yeah.
can get into that. There are many myths and misconceptions about what is healthy.
Hmm.
So I brought some samples to the office and, gave it to people to try, my colleagues, the staff, and patients, and they said, "This is delicious.
Yeah.
What is it?" And I said, "What do you mean? What is it?" It was oatmeal with quinoa and blueberries and
Yeah.
flax seeds. It was kale with garlic and spices. And the fact that they couldn't really identify what it was gave me just a light bulb. And I went and I bought some pots and pans and a stovetop, and I asked for the boardroom of the clinic to let me cook there. And I started to cook.
Oh my God, I love
Yeah.
that.
And
I
people came, and the smell, the aromas, wafted into the hallways, and people would just peek in. And it was the best thing ever, because it was a sensory experience.
Mhm.
It wasn't just a paper with these are some of the recipes, these are some of the foods. If I give you a paper with lots of words on it that you don't really connect, it's like saying, "Here, Queenie, you throw this away."
Right. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but when you taste everything, when you have a hand, and they were cooking with me, it was not a demonstration, it was cooking with me.
Right.
um, so that's how it started,
Yeah.
and it never stopped.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it makes all the difference when, like you're saying, like if you give people just a paper and tell them to go do something, well, when they leave your office, they're passing by all of these restaurants and they're hungry right now, and they're just going to drop in, and they don't even think about that paper that you just gave them, but you are offering them an experience. And I think that sticks with you more. And maybe you even showed them that they can not only eat this, but actually prepare it, and it's not that difficult.
And most importantly, it had to be delicious.
Of course.
So, all right. So,
Yeah.
using spices that they knew, using modes of cooking or preparing that were familiar, trying also always to transform the family or traditional dishes so that they were really not leaving that behind.
Mhm.
To me, it's very important that we connect food with you know, with our tradition, with
Right.
our festivities, or with we use food for everything, for
Yes.
sad, for happy, for
Yes.
celebration.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, so once you did this, like, how did you, so first of all, let me just go back a little bit. You went on your own journey. You decided plant-based was going to be your lifestyle, and it wasn't necessarily for health reasons. It was holistic reasons. It was nature. It was philosophical. It was what you felt was right. That was your walk. And then you saw the benefits, I'm sure, health wise. And so now you're introducing it to your patients that can benefit from it. So like, what was one of I guess one of the light bulb moments that went off that you remember with a patient where they just got it, where you saw some results and they actually saw some results and it made sense to them?
Well, the first things were really like my acid reflux went away in 3 days, or I no longer have joint pains. I'm sleeping better. I'm going to the bathroom without straining. I mean,
Yeah.
those were just like quick, within a week to 10 days, people were experiencing something that was giving back to their body, an
Mhm.
experience that at least made them keep trying,
Yeah.
and keep exploring.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
of course, then came, blood pressures dropped and blood sugars dropped and cholesterols dropped.
Mhm.
And I am very thankful that every now and then I have a star patient, that, because it is hard to swim against the current.
Yes. Yes.
There are many that are just saying, "Oh, no, I mean, people are not going to do this.
Right.
Plus, it's not rewarded. I mean, financially, the
Right.
insurance companies don't really reward counseling patients.
Right.
It takes me an hour and a half to meet with a person to really go through some of the basics, like the virtual kitchen tour is one of my exercises. I don't ask people what they eat. I ask them what they have in their food bank, in their kitchen. That gives me a much better idea.
Yeah, yeah. So when you take them, or when they take you into their kitchen virtually, do you start telling them to throw things out?
To what? I'm
Do you
sorry.
start telling them to throw things away?
Well, I don't. yes and no.
Okay.
What I say is put a red dot on all the things that the food comes from three places:
Okay.
plants, animals, and factories.
Mm.
So, it's easy to put red dots on the factory foods, which are mostly flour, sugar, oil, some
Everything
coloring,
in your cupboard.
most things,
Right.
right? And then, see what you have in your freezer and, the animal products, which are just meat, cheese, eggs.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all.
And then all the plant foods, which are really, they don't need any label. We know exactly what they are, and we can keep them.
Mm-hmm.
So then after we take a look at that kind of display, it's up to the person to say, well, really, my food bank is not that balanced. I don't have to tell him.
Funny how that happens. When
Right.
the truth lies in front of you. So
Yes, the less I say, the more has to come from the person, him
yeah.
or herself.
Yeah, yeah. And so now I know that you, before COVID, and I think still now, I know that you participate and you give many lectures about plant-based. And so like, what is that thing that you love talking about the most? I mean, plant-based is such a huge umbrella, right? But like that thing that just really gets your blood pumping, that you want people to take away from a lecture. What is that message that you're trying to convey to people like myself, or others that are not at all plant-based?
Well, what I want us to remember is that we have been cut off from our roots, really, that we have derailed ourselves. We're eating processed foods that is really not something that existed, that many years ago. We've really, what I want us to remember is that we are from the earth, and that by eating what for thousands of years humans have survived on,
Mm-hmm.
we are really giving the body the best it can to do its magic.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want is for us to remember, it's to reconnect.
Yeah.
When we look around the world, the populations that live to be 90 and 100 without disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they don't have the diseases of affluence that we in the Western countries have, like diabetes and high cholesterol and heart disease and cancers. They have 5 things in common. They are mostly plant eaters. They move all day long.
Yeah.
They use their bodies. They sleep on, a good restful sleep, so they wake up the next morning refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
They lower their stress level, so they're not really just, twisting themselves into a pretzel, or, watching television and getting all filled up with, negative vibes all the time. And number 5, they are connected to something bigger than themselves. They're
Yeah.
part of a community, and the smallest community is your family. But if not your family, the friends, the church, the any civic, anything that makes you feel like you belong. Those are the 5 pillars of health that are common in these populations around the world, and they're known as the blue zones.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm writing notes. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, that's important
The
because
5 pillars of health. I love that.
yeah, so it's nutrition first and
Mm-hmm.
mostly plants. It's moving your body, exercising it
Mm-hmm.
with a purpose, not
Yes.
just going around the block, but really fix your fences, mow your grass,
Yeah.
plant, walk places,
Mm-hmm.
take, you know, yes, change your light bulbs.
Yeah. That's a task. My ceilings are high.
Then sleep well. In other words, if you are exercising and if you're eating well, you are tired at the end of the day, and you will sleep well
Right.
without medications, and you wake up refreshed. Then lower your stress, and there are 2 kinds of stress: the stress that's put on us by others, which are really not satisfying our agenda. And it's, sometimes work.
Right.
But there's another stress that's very good, which is the one that puts us in situations that are new, novel, which require us to learn new things,
Yeah.
learning a new skill, learning a new language, learning how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic way to really, engage, not just engage, but we are making connections between our neurons. So it's protecting us against dementia and Alzheimer's when we are really using our brain in such, active way.
Yeah.
And of course, the last is be connected to something bigger than yourself,
Mm.
and participate in um, activities and organizations, and look after your neighbor, your brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the matters of the heart. That just makes the heart feel really good.
Yes, I'm taking a deep breath as we say that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, that makes the heart feel good. So, okay, now you are a family practitioner, or I'm sorry, family physician. And so in your practice, do you have a very diverse group of patients? Do you see a very diverse group of patients? And
Yeah.
and if so, some of the treatments that you, or some of the illnesses that you see the most, like those that plague the African American community, which are that we know personally, is diabetes, hypertension, of course, there's cholesterol, but the diabetes and hypertension seems to be part of who we are. So within our community, do you see a lot of those particular sicknesses, and do you treat with this approach? Like, do you lead with this approach, and is it received?
Absolutely and absolutely.
Okay.
So, number one, these diseases are diseases not because of our genetics or because of our, background. These are diseases because of the way we're treating our genes.
Mm.
So these
Wow.
diseases run in families and in communities through the kitchen.
Mm. That
It's
is,
really,
yeah. I want them to hear that. Say that one more time.
yes, these diseases, and these are overweight and obesity, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and heart disease. I mean, many patients come with all of them. They're
Mhm.
diseases that run in families and communities through the kitchen, through the way we eat.
Wow. Mm.
So if that's the case, then we are really we're powerful. Because if it was really our destiny, our genes,
Yeah.
then what can you do?
Right.
But if it's really something that is seen, and I'll tell you why we know that. Populations that live in areas where there is really very little heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, and cancer, if they move to the United States, within less than a generation, they acquire the diseases of the host nation. What
Wow.
does that tell us? It tells us that the genes are expressed or not, depending on what we feed them.
Right.
So if you feed food that will turn on the genes that are weak in our, in our makeup, that have to do with cholesterol, well, we're going to have high cholesterol. We challenge those genes, they're going to show up.
Wow.
If you challenge the genes that have to do with, sugar metabolism and intramyocellular lipids, or how we deposit fat in muscle and liver, which we shouldn't, if we challenge those genes and we do that, guess what? We're going to develop insulin resistance or diabetes.
Wow.
But if we don't challenge them, we have the template to build those diseases, but we never build them.
Goodness.
You see?
Yeah.
And that's why at 72, almost 73, I'm still excited about practicing medicine, because I see that even those who missed the boat and already have the disease can reverse it, can halt it, and maybe reverse it.
Wow.
And that's what I also see when people bring down their cholesterol, bring down their blood pressure, bring down their blood sugar. And many are able to not just reduce their medications, but even live without medications.
Wow.
So when you're talking about, yes, who's my population? Who are the patients that I see? Well, I volunteer at a clinic for people without health insurance, and there I see many immigrants from Latin America and Mexico. I also have a practice where I transition people who come because they want to transition to a healthier lifestyle. And there I have people who come from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking all kinds of languages and all kinds of backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And then I teach family medicine residents the role of food in medicine. You know why? Because nobody else is.
Because nobody else is. Yeah, I've heard that.
Very few people are.
I've heard that quite a bit from quite a bit of the people that are out there teaching. They're like, it's only a few of us that are actually practicing and teaching this. And I've heard the same conversation that while in medical school, you get a very small window of nutrition and that's it. And I mean, I understand it. I just don't agree with it. But hey, I'm not a physician. But I'm thankful for physicians like yourself that are being honest about this and are helping to retrain our brains in the way we think about treating these diseases, because oftentimes when you're diagnosed, especially in my community, I'll be honest, if a Black person is diagnosed with diabetes, sometimes you just feel that it's in my genes. My mama, my daddy, my uncle, all these people had it. This one had a leg cut off, that one had a foot cut off, and you just accept that that's what is. And I don't believe that always has to be our sentence. I believe that there has to be another way. And when I'm hearing you talk about food is a great alternative to just saying, let's just take the medicine and deal with and just be okay with it. I want people to hear that. And I want people to understand that there's an alternative. It takes discipline because it's so easy to just stop by and grab a burger, right? It's so easy to do that. But I think when you do it with purpose in mind of healing, that it makes a lot of sense, and you probably will have a better result. And I'm sure you're the physician here, but this is just my own personal experience, like it makes sense. I understand what you're saying. It makes perfect sense to me,
Well, I have two comments about that. Number one, in the residency, I have the opportunity to see many African-American patients, because that's not exactly the case in the clinic where I see mostly Latin American patients or in my practice. So there I have the opportunity to model to the residents how to have an interview with someone who, like yourself, is saying, believing that, yeah, my uncle is on dialysis. I mean, that's, I'm expecting to be in that position sometime in my life. So the first thing is to talk about what is our natural food. If for thousands of years, if we go back all the way back, and it's important for me to really place us where we come from. Okay, yeah. So for thousands of years, we were humans on this planet. We were nomads, walking about looking for whatever we could eat. Right. And it's amazing that we are the descendants of those people. They survived doing that.
How they survive without, processed chicken? No, I'm just kidding.
No, but they did supplement. They did supplement their diet with, a killed animal or a found egg or, something of that sort. But before we had tools, it was really hard to count on that as our source of nourishment. So it was mostly roots and leaves and berries and fruits and nuts and seeds, and however they were prepared until we 10,000 years ago or 11,000 years ago developed some kind of agriculture where we could plant and then start to harvest right there. So we were always plant eaters first and meat eaters as a supplement.
Right.
So when we learned about that, we realize that we've kind of fallen off our way.
Yeah.
And it's important to realize that it's tasty, and that's why it has really stuck with us, because we like the fatty food and we like the sweet food. But to know that the food industry, in collaboration with other financial interests groups and everything, have been preparing food just to target our taste buds, to make it hyper palatable, not just palatable,
Wow.
super hyper palatable. In other words, they're like bombs that you can't say no to after you eat a little piece. That's why they have buckets of fried chicken. That's
Yeah.
why they have buckets of, chicken wings, or
Mhm.
buckets of crabs. It's not just one.
Right.
And then the chips come in humongous bags.
Yeah.
And so when we see through that, it's like the the Wizard of Oz. You see that it's been really done to us. And then we have suddenly a lot of power to go against that machine,
Mhm.
and to realize that it was not the way we were meant to, or that we would even survive, and thrive, but that food, we have to have a blindfold to not realize that it's hurting us.
Right.
This pandemic has come to get on top of a long list of epidemics. I mean, the obesity epidemics, it's not just being overweight or obese, it's what kind of food makes you that overweight or obese.
Right.
So overweight or obese is not a healthy metabolic state, but it's really, how did you get that way?
Yeah.
And eating the food of our species, we don't gain weight. We just eat as much as we can. We get satiated. Have you ever seen a fat squirrel? They're
No.
eating all day long the food of their species.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can go on and on, but what I help people see is that we need to rethink who's got the power here.
Mhm.
And food is a right. Having food is a human right. But to nourish ourselves well, that's our responsibility.
Mm, that is huge. Food is
And
a
I heard
right, but to nourish ourselves well is our responsibility.
I've heard a very esteemed colleague of mine, African American. He's really on a campaign to make soul food soil food.
Yes, I love that. Yes, yes. I support that message. I do. I support that message. Soul food has it has its history, and it has its place in history, but I believe that now we can do better, and we can make better decisions and choices. And I think we should. And I tend to, I grew up eating soul food, but it was never my first choice. It was never what I was truly drawn to. It's what I was given. And so going plant-based, it's not what I'm drawn to. So I tend to choose other types of plant based alternatives instead of soul food. Because there are even some soul food vegan restaurants. And when I go in, I'm like, this is killing us. This is killing us. The gravies, the oils, everything is still so heavy and so fatty, and it just doesn't have an animal, there. So again, it's about knowing that that's not good for me. So I'm just not going to do it. Or, moderation, just taste a bit of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm good.
These are not my words again, because it would not be my place, but this colleague of mine talks about this soul food as maybe having roots in plantations.
It does. Yeah.
So not really the first thing we're drawn to.
Right. It's
And
definitely
to season it with oils and sugars and salts is to really make unhealthy food taste better.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Because, the history of soul food, most of it was the scraps that were given to slaves from, the plantation or the slave, master, the big house, they were just given that. And we had the gift to survive. So we made it, taste, good enough to eat. And then we've perfected that, of course, all these years over. But it's the worst of the worst parts of the food. And oftentimes it has been the worst of the worst parts of the food. And it's never been any good for us. It's been killing us the whole time. You know.
So from my heritage, which is, Latin American,
Mm-hmm.
it's really been the same thing. I mean, it's been or not the same thing, it's been the industry coming in and displacing the agriculture and displacing the food that that people know that grows from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, tempting our palate, with um, extra fatty and extra sweet and extra salty foods. And it is addictive in the sense that it makes us want more, because if we didn't like fatty and sweet things in the Stone Age and we just ate plants, and didn't really like the nuts and the fat that would come every now and then from a killed animal, we would die from starvation, the weeks of drought or floods, or or just not enough food. So we had to have this wired in that we like fat and sweet and salty. Um, and the industry has just capitalized on that
Mm-hmm.
and given it to us cheap and everywhere.
Yeah. Cheap is the thing. You can get almost anything for $1, and it's, you know, you can buy five of those things and feed an entire family. And it's, it really is unfortunate. It runs so deep when you think of it that way. And, but there are still alternatives. And speaking of the alternatives, I have a question here, and it is, why is it so expensive to go plant-based?
Oh, I am so happy that you asked that, because I said, oh, I missed it. No, yes, it's not expensive. All right. If you are eating beans, rice, fruits, oats, that's the cheapest food on the planet.
Mhm.
If you want to eat processed, plant foods, vegan food, or if you want to eat that on top of all the other food that you were eating, of course you're going to spend more money. But studies that I've read and my own research with my patients shows us that $35 per adult per week gives us all the fresh fruits and vegetables that we need.
Wow.
$35 per adult per week. Now that's not counting, of course, the staples that we would have in the pantry or
Mhm.
the freezer. So we would have some frozen food, we would have some cans, we would have some dry legumes,
Mhm.
right? We'd have some onions and garlic. I mean, things that we could buy for the month.
Right, right.
But then the things that we would have to replenish because they're perishable, that we would buy every week, that would be your leafy greens, your fruit. $35 a person. Now think of people going past the fast food or the Wawa or the Starbucks. How many $35 do you drop in a week in
Yeah.
that kind of food?
Yeah.
So we have to really, kind of look at the whole picture and not just say eating, plants is more expensive. I also want to say that, plants are really the value of the food, the true value of the food, that the foods that are in, the chicken, the eggs, the ice cream, all that, those are subsidized foods. They're
Mhm.
artificially cheap because they have been subsidized by government grants and different programs. So the value of broccoli and cauliflower and sweet potatoes and pumpkin, that's the true value of the farmers, working the land, tending it, harvesting it, bringing it to you. We should value that. And I think educating consumers that that's the true cost of food, as
Mhm.
opposed to calling it expensive, call it the true cost of food and call the other one artificially cheap.
Oh my goodness. I love that. So yes, I hope the listeners are taking your notes. Artificially cheap. Well, my next question is, are you yourself not okay? Are you yourself a raw food vegan, or do you cook food?
I cook food. I eat some raw, I eat some steamed. So I don't belong to a cult
Okay. Yeah.
or, or a club.
Right.
What I do think is that the closer we eat to a whole foods plant-based diet, which is how I eat, the healthier we are, the less footprint on the planet, the more violence we, eliminate,
Mm,
and the more we're doing to just live in harmony with every living being on the planet.
mhm.
So um, I mean, my salads are raw, of course.
Yes.
My nuts are raw.
Mhm.
All the fruits I eat are raw, although I bake some pears and apples with some nuts and dates in the middle, and they are just delicious.
Yeah.
So there's really value in eating some things raw because you are not destroying some vitamins that are destroyed by heat. At the same time, when we cook some things, we make them some nutrients even more available because we're breaking some of the uh, covers or the linings that we cannot really enzymatically, or digest ourselves.
Mhm.
So, but whatever, whatever people want to do, I mean, a raw plant food diet is very healthy,
Mhm.
uh, just like um, just like keeping some hours of the day as a fast is also a healthy thing.
Mhm.
There should not really be a one size fits all. I mean, the thing is, we should all be aiming at more whole foods, plant based. And what by that we mean that you see the food and you know what it is. It doesn't need a label. So
Nice.
the less processed it has been, the better.
Mhm.
Oats is one example. I mean, very few of us eat oat groats, which is the whole grain, and
Okay.
it looks like a fat rice.
Okay.
Most of us eat the steel cut oats. In other words,
Right.
they have cut them for us, so they cook a little bit quicker. Many more of us are familiar with the rolled oats, which is the steamed grain flattened
Right.
so that it really cooks quick. And then others are more familiar with the instant oats, which have been really almost pulverized, and
Yeah.
digested for us. So in that one example, you have groats to instant.
Mhm.
So looking at the spectrum, the closer to the groat, the more healthy it is because you have all the intact nutrients, you're chewing, you're giving your bones a reason to exist, your teeth are giving all the work, your enzymes. So in everything, that's the whole idea.
Mhm.
Don't get the oil, get the nut or the olive. Don't get the
Oh
sugar,
yeah.
don't, don't get the sugar, get the dates and the fruits and the dried fruits. So the less processed, the better. But we make use, 95% of our food is unprocessed, and we process it ourselves at home. Whole foods, plant-based, that's what we aim for.
Mhm.
But it's not like you have to be pure or 100%. That's not the point.
Mhm.
Eating is a pleasure, and it should really be a pleasure that gives us health
Mhm.
and vibrancy and joy, and that allows us in the kitchen to be our own, pleasing ourselves, with what would I like today? Something savory, something sweet.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is combine the things that you have there, whether, in a salad or in a stew, or wrap them up. And there's no limit.
Mhm.
Food is, and food is medicine, but it doesn't have to taste like a medicine.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next question is, what are your thoughts on eating bread if you are already diagnosed with diabetes?
Well, diabetes is not a problem of bread. Diabetes is a problem of utilizing carbohydrates, but the culprit is fat. So it's fat in your muscle cells and in your liver. So once you have diabetes, what's happened is that you have fat in muscle and liver keeping you from using your bread in every cell of the body, which needs the energy. So it's not the bread, it's the fat.
Okay.
However, once you have diabetes and once you have the fat in the cells and you eat bread, it's going to spike your sugar, right? Just like fruit is going to spike your sugar. Why? Because it can't get into the cells, because the fat is there occupying the cells and blocking the sugar from going in. So once you clean out from fat your muscles and your liver, meaning eating no meat, chicken, fish, eggs, cheese, and oils, in weeks or at the most months, you have recovered insulin sensitivity, you have recovered your ability to use the sugar, and then you're fine. You can have a slice of bread. You can have as much fruit as you want. You can have as much oatmeal as you want. It's the fat,
It's the
not
fat.
the carbohydrate, not the sugar.
It's the fat, not the carbohydrate, or not the sugar. Okay. Okay. Great. I hope that answers your question.
I
What
don't
is,
know. It
right?
takes a lot. It takes a lot to get that, in our brains, that
Yeah.
that it's a cascade, Queenie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cascade. In other words, the fat is the original culprit.
Right.
Once you have the fat in the cells, anything that turns to sugar will spike your sugar. So you don't really need to cut back on your carbohydrates in the actual food. What you have to cut back is on the fat so that the carbohydrate can come in.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Now,
would you
sugar and flour are bad
sugar
by the
and
heavens.
flour? Sugar and flour are bad.
They're the bad carbs. They have been extracted from the plants, and they really should not really be part of our everyday life. So
Okay.
a slice of bread every now and then, but pastries and Twinkies and sugary beverages and all that kind of stuff, that's already taken out of the plant itself. So that's the most processed food ever, right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So eat the carbohydrate, but eat it within the sweet potato, eat
Right.
it within the oats, within the pumpkin, within the mango, within the fruit, the oil, but within the olive, within the nut, within the avocado.
Right. So not the pumpkin bread.
You can make pumpkin bread with ingredients that are just pumpkin, the oats for the flour, and dates for the sweetener. So there are many. I mean, from a vegan to another vegan. I mean,
Yeah.
look up on the internet, plant-based or vegan, oil-free pumpkin bread, and I'm sure you'll come up with 10 different recipes that are delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So bread, so bread and the flour and the sugar are not good for us.
No, right.
Not in excess. So a sandwich a day is probably not the way to go.
Well,
The
but
sandwiches wind up being very long, the big sub sandwich. I don't.
depends on what you put inside the two, the two loaves, the
Okay.
two things of bread.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you spoke about fasting, and there's a question here about if you intermittent fast, or what do you think about intermittent fasting? And so since you already spoke about it, can you tell us your thoughts on intermittent fasting, and if it's a practice that you either do yourself or suggest to patients?
Okay, so I'm sure many of your listeners are already fasting every day, because we break fast every morning. We breakfast.
Yes.
So the idea is really to fast a little longer than just 6 hours or 7 hours. So I fast maybe 12 hours.
Okay.
So, if I finish eating at 7 o'clock at night, I don't eat until 7 o'clock the next morning. That's 12 hours. If I want to do a little bit longer fast, and we can talk just briefly some of the benefits of doing that. Let's say that I finish eating at 7 o'clock at night. I could not eat breakfast until 10 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give me 12 plus 3,
Yeah.
15 hours fast.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens during a fast is that your body is not busy or not asked to do other tasks which interfere with putting the house in order. And it's time that you don't have free radicals being built. In other words, no oxidation in the bloodstream, so that your immune system doesn't have to really be busy, cleaning up after itself all the time. It's like having a vacation. When you have a vacation, when it's raining outside and you can't do anything outside, and you clean your house, you put everything in order. That's what we want to give the body every night time for, to make sure that if there are cells that were becoming cancer cells, that the immune system has a chance to spot them and kill them. And also something very important happens in our brains. We commit short-term memory things to long-term memory. So it's a good time that your brain is learning things that you will need later.
Wow.
For students who are studying for an exam, there's a time when you just say, okay, that's it, that's enough. And you have a good night's sleep. And the next morning, you just don't look at the material again. You just committed a lot of that to long-term memory, and you do better than if you stayed up all night and didn't have that period of fasting or quiet in your brain. So for body and mind, fasting is 12 to 15 to 17 hours. So it's not about days and days, it's really just giving a break.
I love that. Okay. All right. Next question is, it's you actually talked about it a little bit earlier, but they were asking if the lifestyle approach is a holistic lifestyle, and if so, what is your philosophy on holistic living?
Well, veganism is really, yes, it's a lifestyle. It's a philosophical, way of living. And what it really is at its core, it's ahimsa, and it means active non-harm. So it's not harming anyone, anything. And it should start with us. It should really start with us not harming ourselves, with us, nourishing ourselves well, exercising, sleeping well, de-stressing, and having a community that supports us. So it's not just for the animals or for the planet. It's really all encompassing. And yes, the more we practice this, the more we realize that it's really not just like the practice of yoga. It's not just exercises. It's a lifestyle. It's really, centering yourself, balancing yourself, is living mindfully, is thinking before you jump to say something that might be thoughtless or hurtful. Or so yes, the more we do that, the better. And I do.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I have my own question because before I get to the other two that I have here, as when you speak about like the holistic side of it, right? Do you spend time in nature? Like, do you meditate? Is this part of your typical lifestyle? Because you're beautiful at 73. And I'm wondering, like, has this been your lifestyle? Like the approach of, like, they're asking about being holistic, like a holistic approach. So like the yoga, meditation, is that something that you've been into? And how long? Because you look so de-stressed and beautiful. I know this is the end of your day and you're on camera with me looking like this. So what is the secret? And is that part of it?
Yeah, it has to be. But I have to tell you, I am like everyone else. I mean, I grew up, I didn't grow up like this. uh, you know, um, I've been I've thrown myself into exercise, into yoga, into learning about Carl Jung and psychology, into medicine, into family, into everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have adopted it as I have incorporated it into a more balanced way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been serial monogamies, I mean, it has been slowly putting them together and weaving them into some better practice. So I've always been drawn to nature. I've Now what I do is I do it more effortlessly. Uh, it's not something that's a time and a day and and a tight schedule, but meditation for me can happen at the drop of a hat,
Wow.
while I am weeding, or while I am walking my dog, or while I'm cooking. That would be a perfect one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always have the radio on. I am not always taking things in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm letting things come out.
Right.
I'm surprised by the things that come out. I
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to my dreams, and for many years, I wrote every night or every
Really?
morning, what I dreamt. Now I am just amused by some of my dreams, and I will write some down because they are so amusing or so, uh, hard to understand.
Right.
Um, so I value everything that happens in my life. I'm very grateful. I have glaucoma. I have a condition that,
Mm-hmm.
is diminishes my eyesight,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my only disability. And I am grateful that I have enough of it, enough vision, to be able to do what I like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's about really not forgetting that we are an organism, with a spirit, with a mind, and that we live in a in a space and time, and that we didn't just plop here. That there's a line, that connects us to the past
Mm-hmm.
and to the future. Um, so it's about all of that. I cannot tell you there's a formula, but
Yeah.
when I make decisions that make me feel bigger, that make me breathe with more ease, I know that it's the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
If I am rushed into making a decision that feels that I am pressed together,
Mm-hmm.
I used to sort of live with it, but now I just say, on second thought, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think we should really practice that
Yeah.
much earlier, much younger. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to come to a certain age to do that. I mean, the age is, some wisdom comes with the age,
Right.
but the practice, you should practice more to please yourself without hurting anyone, and to be yourself. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
this is who I am, and I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't start my practice in that until I turned 40.
Well, that was when I started my
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah. At
40
40,
years
it
old.
was just like, no, not going to do that. Before, it was always about saying yes, even when I felt like so overwhelmed, like I don't want to do it. But I began to practice the what you're speaking of at about 40, and um, it's still developing. It's a muscle that I'm still having to work, but I feel better with saying that because sometimes I don't feel the extra stress, of saying yes and compromising myself. So, so I think I'm learning it. I wish I would have learned it a little earlier though, but we learn
I
it.
know.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, when treating your patients, do they know that you are treating them in a holistic approach? This is the same this is from the same person speaking on
Yeah,
holistic.
no question about it. I mean, I first of all, I connect people with their condition, you know, and I ask them, you know, why is it that you think you have this, that, or the other? So I connect their pain, their condition, their symptoms, their ticket, you know, into the office with the narrative of this is I'm going to offer you, you know, that this is probably why this has happened to you. So I feed it back to them in that way. And it's no secret. I mean, they're not being done something, you know, that they are not aware of. And they still keep coming, which is the fun thing, because they know that I am going to ask them, so how have you been practicing what we talked about? And because it comes without judgment, but really with more, how can I help you? What are the obstacles? You know, how are you navigating? Who's got your back? You know, who's on your corner, or in your corner? Who are you counting on? You know, what are the obstacles? So this is the kind of stuff, because Queenie, we have enough evidence that a whole foods plant-based diet and this kind of holistic, you know, approach to disease, which is not symptom driven, but really, you know, the core reason for the disease. We have enough evidence that a whole foods plant-based diet is what will help people prevent, arrest, and even reverse disease. So the studies that we really need now are not more studies that show that. That's ridiculous. I mean, we can continue to learn more about the nuances, you know, of how it happens. But what we need now is, how do we help people sustain this lifestyle? How do we help the people, you know, make the transition so that it's really not stressful, and then sustain it? How can we help them, help the family? How can we help them within their work environment? So this is, you know, what I think medicine needs to do now, is to change the paradigm of the practice of medicine by changing medical education. So young physicians, there's a beautiful documentary called Code Blue.
Loved it. Yes.
And the whole idea is really, if we teach physicians, young physicians, that the pillars of health, and we make them live it through their medical school years, by having a kitchen laboratory, by having an exercise, you know, routine, by de-stressing, by giving them time to meditate, then they can really come to their patients, and it's second nature to them.
I'm just all in. I'm just sitting here. I'm supposed to be interviewing you, and I'm just like, you know, captivated by what you're saying. You know, Code Blue is a great documentary, and I think it's on Amazon. I think it is. Anyways, you know, the listeners, you guys can Google it. You'll find it. I think it's on Amazon. Dr. Baxter is on there, and there's several other doctors. And you're right. When I saw the students cooking and like they were living this totally different lifestyle while in medical school, I was like, this has to be a great experience for them, because I know that they're going to take that with them into practice, which for many, I believe, is the missing link with medicine.
If I don't smoke and I know the value of not smoking, I'm going to ask my patients. If I exercise, I'm going to ask my patients. Whatever I do, my patients benefit from my lifestyle.
Yeah, that I totally get that. Okay. So the next question, because I love, I could stay there all day and talk about that, but the next question is, oh, hold up. Oh, food. When shopping for food, what do you suggest is the best route we take? I don't know what that question means, but you can answer it any way that you interpret it. What's the best route we take?
Well, we take the route that takes us to the fruits and vegetables first.
Yes, yes, we'll take that answer.
I mean, if you're tripped by the Cinnabons, and the bakery, avoid that entrance.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what I do is I go with recipes in mind.
Okay.
So, there are some things that I normally, of course, get, like the oats and the dates, because they are like my overnight oats. But I plan to get the food that I'm going to cook that week, and I cook for the week, and I do cook more than that because I have the luxury at this age to really have time.
Hmm.
But other people, I suggest that they cook once or twice a week, big amounts, big quantities, so that they have it um, for the week. And it's important to not buy ingredients that you have no use for, or no, you're not exactly sure how you're gonna,
Yeah.
because they might end up spoiling or just wasting it. Or so the route I take is the um, most conscious route, knowing what I'm going to prepare, buying the ingredients, and trying to really buy seasonal ingredients. So
Yeah.
if the mangoes are in season now, I'll be eating mangoes until they come out of my ears. And then when they are not, I'm going to have the memory of eating mangoes until they come back.
Yes. Do you grow your own food?
That's one of those things that I threw myself into,
Oh, okay.
videos for a while. But it was really, I live in an area where there are herds of deer that
Oh,
respect no fence.
yes.
So no, I don't. Not at this point, I don't. But I have been part of, community gardens, and I encourage people to do that. And yes, so I
Okay.
don't. Yeah,
Okay. Do you only eat organic?
I
I think
try.
you've already kind of answered a lot of this, but do you only eat organic?
I don't only eat organic, but I try to, and for the many reasons. I mean, it's more nutritious, um, but it also is more, how should I say, protective of the farmers, because farmers who are exposed to pesticides and organic chemicals, and also nature. I mean, the birds and the bees and all the pollinators and all the insects that are killed and maimed by us, putting pesticides on stuff. Even if it doesn't really end up on our plate, it has harmed many people and many others before me. So it's more nutritious to be organic. It also educates folks, to really support um, farmers that are doing it, yeah, more healthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So I know we're coming to the close of our hour. I have another question here. Well, actually, this is my personal last question. But well, I guess I could ask it because it may tie into me allowing you to share, you know, I don't know, maybe that last thought with the audience. But my question to you, my final question to you is, what would you say is your life's purpose or your life work?
This is one thing that has revealed itself slowly, but I think one of my life's purpose has been to communicate and to link, to make the complicated simple. I'm a storyteller. I I like to tell stories about how our bodies, like those same sentiments that you mentioned earlier, that you're listening to me. I like to help people be in awe of our bodies. I like to reveal the things that are just hidden in plain sight.
Mhm.
I like to connect people with other people. I love doing that. I just love making connections between people and then just watching what happens between.
Yes.
To me, I don't have to be in the middle of everything, but I really love to make connections,
Yeah.
build bridges, and I love bringing from my unconscious, or or acknowledging things that come from my unconscious and using them in my conscious life. So that's why I pay attention to dreams, or I pay attention to things that bubble up. So I guess I'm curious. I like to tell the complicated things in a simple way, which is why I wrote a book, that tells the simple stories of how our bodies work and um, how our food travels the gut, and how come there are. Yes, I like to discover the things that are hidden in plain sight. How come there's so much osteoporosis here and not in other countries, and we drink more milk than anybody else?
Right.
So I like to question the things that have been taken for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned your book. Tell us a little bit about your book, or where the listeners can find your book, or is it just one or more? I mean, yeah.
It's only one book, and I don't think, everything I knew to that point, I put in that book.
Okay.
I wrote it as an antidote to our reliance on pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
So, if anyone gets the book, do not skip the introduction, because I say a lot there that will not be part of the book. You can just buy it through your small local bookstore, my preferred way to help people do it. Of course, they can find it on Amazon and others, but I think we really should help each other, prop up the small business people.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is order it, and, they'll have it for you.
Well, they need to know the name of it, Dr. Negron.
Oh, that's true. It's called Nourishing the Body and Recovering Health.
Okay.
The Positive Science of Food.
Wow.
When I wrote it, Queenie, I wrote it in a year and a half, took 9 months to edit. I pitched it to many publishing companies, and one said, we like it. And in 6 months, it was published. They changed nothing other than a few things to protect the innocent.
Oh, goodness.
But it's my words, my voice, and I'm so, so happy with it.
Great.
I want it to be in every library, and I have. I've given it to so many people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to go out and have to order your book. Our local bookstore, I could check and see if it's there, or at least have them to order it, because
They probably don't have it, but you can order it.
Yeah, I can
them.
have them order
Yeah.
it. So I'll play this back, and I'll grab the name again, and I will order the book. And I will likely do a small review as well, a live review once I
Oh, that'd be lovely.
yeah. Yeah, once I read it, I look forward to doing that. So, Dr. Negron, I've just really enjoyed chatting with you. And as I said, I love listening to you anyway. I've listened to a couple of your lectures. I think you might have had that book out at one of those lectures I saw on YouTube. But I do enjoy watching you on YouTube. There are some videos out there. People can find you. But can you just tell the listeners, like, other places that we might be able to find you? If you are on social media, if you would continue to give any lectures, if you do lectures virtual, that, anyone can drop in. Do you have any of that going on right now?
Well, a couple of the places where I am giving lectures are in Spanish, and they are in Puerto Rico and international.
Okay.
One is called Casa Vegana de la Comunidad, if there are any Spanish speaking in
I
your
do have some Spanish speakers that will be listening.
Okay. Another is Coalición Fortaleza Latina. And I lecture to medical students, to people, who, like you, Grace, so graciously, asked me to be on your podcast. I am not on social media, although I do have a Facebook page, Ana M. Negron MD. And I put things there every now and then.
Okay.
And I have a website, greensonabudget.org.
Okay, greensonabudget.org.
greensonabudget.org.
Okay.
which was born when I started to cook with my patients. I wanted people to know that it was cheap and that it had to be green.
Okay. Lastly, before I wrap this up, I made eggplant. I love eggplant. Do you eat eggplant?
Yes, I do.
How do you make it? What's your favorite prep for eggplant?
Well, now I'm trying to, I used to just put it in the skillet with some tomato sauce and garlic and onions and all of that. But I am now going to try to make um, lentil patties
Okay.
with eggplant. Yes, I've made it with potatoes or sweet potatoes, but eggplant as the glue
Yeah.
that would build them together.
I love eggplant, and I'm almost ashamed to say this live because once it's said, it's gone and everyone knows your business. But I can take a little eggplant and cook it and eat the whole eggplant. I
Sure.
don't know if that's okay or not, but but I can just eat like I'll cook just that one eggplant and I'll eat that one eggplant. It's so delicious.
Wow. And well, how do you, I mean, you bake it?
Yeah. I'll bake, I'll soak it, get the bitters out of it. And then I'll just throw it in the oven. I'll slice it and throw it in the oven, bake it, and
Yum.
it's so delicious.
Plants are so beautiful.
Yeah. I grew up on a farm. And so I have a huge appreciation for plant life, for eating whole food. I grew up in that environment, and my grandmother, that was what she cooked, and she made preserves, and everything was, now that I'm older, I realize everything almost came right out of the garden, came right off the farm. Um, we hardly ever went to the grocery store for anything. And it was a treat to get a box of cereal, and we would probably, like every kid could have their own cereal, but that was like, you better make it last. It was like, it's gonna like a month, like 2 weeks at least, or a month. That was the only box you would have. And so I have, I came full circle back to having a huge appreciation
Mm.
for plant-based living. It just made sense to me because thankfully I was introduced to it at such an early age. So I went right back to my roots.
That's such a beautiful, yes, whole circle.
Yes,
We've been cut off from our
yes,
roots
yes,
and we've almost been wiped off the memory. So
yes.
let's recover it.
Yeah.
Not too late.
Yes, I love that. Well, Dr. Negron, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I've had an amazing time chatting with you. I will go back and listen to this interview again because I love hearing you speak. And I hope that my Vegan Girl with Curves brand followers will listen in and they'll take something from this. That's where all the questions came from. I have a brand on Facebook called Vegan Girl with Curves, and it is showing up looking like myself and speaking that, hey, I'm vegan as well. I run and I have this lifestyle that's active and I eat plant-based, and you can do it as well. So hopefully they will take something from this interview with you. So thank you so much. And I look forward to following you a little bit more and seeing what you have going on during this pandemic time, doing amazing things out there. I love it.
This was such a treat.
Yeah.
And just because we're open to it,
Yes,
it happened.
yes. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much. So I'm going to stop our recording. I'm thankful for everything tonight.